the citizenship education program, I should say. And when she attended the citizenship education program there in South Carolina on the coast, she, along with others, experienced a profound sense of liberation. It was a twofold objective that characterized their time there on the coast of South Carolina. They went to South Carolina on the one hand in order to find themselves flushing from their system all of that which reflected oppression that had been internalized in their lives. It is possible to be in wrong so long that wrong begins to infect your own spirit. I'm not coming through like I need to. I believe it was Howard Thurman who sagaciously suggested what happens to you can't defeat you unless you allow it to get in you. And with that being the case, my sisters and brothers, there in SCLC's Citizenship Education Program, they assembled on the East Coast in South Carolina on one hand in order to redefine themselves, to be delivered as it were from their own internalized oppression. Not only that, but they left there with the feeling that they would be empowered as agents of social change. Now, you recognize this is 1963. 1963, at the height of the civil rights movement, they had witnessed what had gone down in Bull Connor's Birmingham, Alabama. Perhaps you saw even last week as we commemorated the martyrdom of the drum major for justice, Martin King, how in 1963 in the streets of Birmingham, Alabama, Bull Connor turned loose water hoses or fire hoses and dogs on those who were simply marching for liberation. But hold on, that's not all that was going on. It's also a season where Medgar Evers in just a matter of days would be slain in his driveway there in Jackson, Mississippi. It is a hell of a time for black people, and yet here they are on the coast of South Carolina, on the one hand being delivered from internalized oppression, redefining themselves, because you recognize when you define yourself for yourself, you don't live down to others' expectations. Preach, Freddie Haynes, I already am. But not only that, they were seen now as agents of social change. And with that being the case, my sisters and brothers, they were in South Carolina, but now after a season of training and education, they head back to Mississippi. And when they arrive in Mississippi, there in Winona, Mississippi, they go in a real sense into an earthly hell where there were those who were trying to throw shade on their shine. Here is Fannie Lou Hamer, a woman of incredible faith, and when she gets into the state of Mississippi, recognizing that there were those on the bus whose spirits had been darkened by the evident climate of oppression, listen to Fannie Lou as she sings, "This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine everywhere I go." But then the bus is stopped by a police officer. The police officer arrests everyone on the bus, takes them to Winona jail, and there in jail, one by one, they are beaten savagely and severely. I'm not even done. Fannie Lou is the last one there who has not been beaten. Check out what goes down. She's waiting, and when they come and get her, they grab her and pull her into what was known as the bullpen. And because the white jailers were weary from beating the others, they then went and got some black inmates and brought them and threatened them with a severe beating if they did not beat down Fannie Lou Hamer. Here's what goes down. Fannie Lou is beaten for 30 consecutive minutes until she passes out. Not only did she pass out, but check this, in the process of being beaten, at one point her dress flew over her head. Trying to preserve some dignity, she pulled her dress down. That infuriated infuriated the white jailers. As a consequence, you know what they did? They pulled the dress back up and then they sexually assaulted her. Understand, she's experiencing physical abuse and sexual assault. All of this is going on for 30 minutes. She is beaten severely, savagely, and viciously until she passes out. When she comes to, check out the picture. When she comes to, she cannot move. She cannot straighten her body up. In a real sense, she is beaten so severely and savagely that her own skin has turned the color purple. I'm not even done, because she says her skin is as hard as metal. She has experienced such a severe beating that she already was suffering from polio, and now the polio is magnified by the beating. Understand, get the picture. She's in jail and she is in prison in her own pain, and as a consequence she cannot move. I'm hoping you're catching the metaphor. On the one hand, she's in prison. On the other hand, she's in severe pain. I'm not even done, because she cannot move. She is incarcerated in her own pain, yet she's in prison. But don't forget that she's still in prison in the aftermath of the severe and savage beating. Here's why I hang out, because the beating had happened some days before now, and yet she's still unable to move in the present because of something vicious that had happened in the past. I got to do that one more time. In a real sense, note with me, she's in prison in her pain, but she's also in a physical prison, and as a consequence of what had happened in the past, she is now living in the awful agony of the after effects. And that's where I want to hang out, because something had happened to her in the past, and now she's living with after effects. You do recognize, if you've ever been in a car accident, it's not just the immediate impact, it's the lingering after effects that can wreck you. And somebody's feeling me already, because if you're honest with yourself, something has happened in your life back then, and you're still living with the trauma and the drama, the disappointment, the anxiety, the shame, the low self-esteem, the insecurity, and the guilt. Here it is. All of those are after effects. And if you let me hop into this passage, you'll discover homiletically that something had happened evil to this woman in our text 18 years ago, and now here she is in the synagogue in worship, and the book lets us know she is bent double. As a matter of fact, when you read the language of the Greek New Testament, she does not have the strength to lift herself up. Don't miss that. Something had happened in the past, and now it had made her a prisoner of her present pain, which was a result or the after effects of what had happened in the past. I'm hanging out right here homiletically because I think I just pulled up to someone's address. No matter how holy and good you look right now, all of us have something about us that causes us to be bent double. We wish we had the strength to rise up, but something happened back then that has made us a prisoner in our right now. And that's what's happening in our passage. And then the book lets us know she happens to show up in the synagogue on the day that Jesus was the guest preacher. Now here is where the shout is about to come, because I am talking about Jesus, our sable-skinned Savior from the streets. I'm talking about Jesus, our cinnamon-colored Christ. Jesus the Christ already had established a track record of making a difference in the lives of those who were down and out. Bible readers already know that Jesus had a track record of stopping a funeral procession and transforming it into a festive family reunion. I'm talking about Jesus, who was blessed with such healing as a great physician that the book lets us know you could bring your your pre-existing condition to Jesus and not have to pay a premium. I'm talking about Jesus. I'm talking about Jesus whose culinary supernatural skills could take a 2-piece and 5 biscuits, and before you know it, there was a pop-up banquet in the wilderness. I'm talking about Jesus who did not have an ophthalmological degree, but if you were blind, he would open blind eyes. Jesus who can walk on water, heal the sick, raise the dead, shows up in the synagogue. And the book says when he shows up in the synagogue, he notices this woman who is bent double, this woman who is imprisoned in her own helplessness. She is a captive of what she can't do. But look what the book says when Jesus notices her. Jesus says to her, and here's where you get your shout on, because when you read Shedd Meyer, the brilliant New Testament scholar and activist, he says when the writer of Luke is writing this, don't miss this, Luke is not just focusing simply on the biomedical miracle, but Luke makes us aware of the fact that Jesus spent most of his ministry going to the back of the line of significance, and there he would do a Beyonce and say, let me upgrade you. Why? Because you recognize, my sisters and brothers, that here is a woman who is bent double. Understand that meant that according to Shedd Meyer, she is not seen as a person of value. She's experiencing what Professor Eddie Glaude calls the value gap. You do recognize in this nation there is a value gap. You're missing your shout. Let me help you. A value gap which says that there are some folks that matter and others do not matter. Y'all still didn't get that. Let me help you. In this nation, if you are black, you have to get back. Why? Because we don't matter. You think I'm making that up? Does it not blow your mind that with this opioid crisis in the country, that now we see drug addiction as what? A public health issue. And so they are doing everything they can to make sure that those addicted to opioid painkillers are receiving proper treatment. But what was up when in the 80s and 90s they flooded our communities with crack cocaine? They did not see crack cocaine addiction as a public health crisis. They saw it as something to criminalize because crack was associated with being black, and as a consequence they fed the prison industrial complex with a criminal justice system that was criminal and unjust, and black folk filled the prisons in this country. Why? Because black lives don't matter as much as white lives matter. Y'all still not getting it. I'll see if I can make it plain. Did it not blow your mind? Just a few weeks ago, Washington, D.C. and other cities were flooded with kids who said, we ain't gonna take this anymore because they're sick and tired of gun violence. But does it not blow your mind? Black folk have had to deal with gun violence for a long time, but it did not make headlines or matter. Why? Because there's a value gap. But hold on, when you meet Jesus, Jesus says, I'm about to upgrade you. And whenever folk have treated you like you do not matter, like you do not have any value, Jesus says, I'll go to the back of the line where you are and upgrade you to where you should be, because Jesus obliterates and eliminates the value gap. You better preach, Freddie Haynes. I'm doing the best I can. And so understand, my sisters and brothers, this woman receives healing from Jesus Christ, but in the process of receiving healing, some shady folk have something they have to say. Isn't it jacked up that shady folk even show up in church? As a matter of fact, some of the shadiest people on the planet go to church every Sunday, and they'll be shady in the name of Jesus. It's some shady people in church who will hate on God blessing you. They will block what God is trying to bless. Anybody know some shady saints who are shady in the name of Jesus? I've discovered ain't no shade like holy shade, because holy shade just don't stop. Preach, Freddie. I'm doing the best I can. And so understand, my sisters and brothers, that here is Jesus, and Jesus heals this woman. But what gets me as we come back to her is that she's been like this for 18 years, but she still shows up for church. Y'all didn't shout. She's been like this not for 18 minutes, not for 18 hours, not for 18 days, because if this were me and God had not heard and healed me in 18 years, I don't know if I'd still be going to church. But this woman had the kind of faith that says my relationship with God and my worship is not contingent upon what God does for me, because I don't treat God like God is some theological slot machine. I relate to God because God is God, and if God don't do nothing else for me, God has already done enough. I wish I had another saint in here who will testify. I get my worship and praise on not because of what God has done for me. I get my worship and praise on because God is worthy of worship and God is worthy to be praised. I'm not coming through. I'll see if I can make it plain. Check this out. While flying over here, I just got off the plane. Here's what tripped me out. I'm on the plane, and seated next to me on the plane, this just happened, was this person, and they had this little dog, a little lap dog. And so I'm tripping until it dawned on me. Here's your shout right here, that the Greek word for worship, here's your shout, the Greek word for worship is proskuneo. Proskuneo is a Greek picture, here it is, of a lap dog licking the hand of its master. And so when you worship, you are licking the hand of your master. I didn't understand that, Harry, until I'm watching this lap dog pulled out of its case by the owner, and the owner pulls it out, puts it on his lap, and then the lap dog begins to lick the hand of the owner. I'm saying that's some nasty stuff right there. How you gonna lick on your owner's hand? And that lap dog said, oh, you gonna talk to me like that? I said, oh, you ain't talking to me, you a dog. Oh yeah, Shakespeare saith there are sermons in stones. Jesus said if these hold their peace, the rocks will cry out. So if rocks can rejoice and sermons speak, you about to get some doctrine from a dog. I said, well, talk to me, dog. The dog said, Freddie, you better understand why I lick the hand of my owner. I'm not licking the hand of my owner because I want something. I'm licking the hand of my owner because I know what these hands have done for me. These hands pick me up when I don't feel like going on. These hands feed me. These hands protect me. I don't know about y'all, but do I have some anointed dogs in the house who will testify when you see me in worship and I'm getting my worship on, it ain't nothing but the dog in me. And so she gets her worship on. She gets her praise on. 18 years, still suffering, but praises God anyhow. And because she praises the Lord anyhow, she gets healed with God somehow. Now that's a shout right there, but I ain't got time to do that. Let me go ahead and show you how this thing works. She gets some shine, and the haters start throwing shade. Let's see how this thing works. The text says, and this messes me up right here, the text says that when Jesus healed her, and don't miss your shout right here, Jesus healed her. He says, woman, you are freed from your infirmity. You are set free from what has imprisoned you. You are set free from what has bound you. You are set free. You missing your shout. Jesus speaks the word before the healing happens. You didn't get that. The word goes forth. And once the word goes forth, the text says he then puts his hand on her, because that's the healing combination. It's a combination of word and hand. And if we're going to make a difference right here in Oakland, it's good to get the word out. But once you get the word out, you got to extend the hand. It's word and hand that eventuate in healing. And I love that because the text lets us know, she's saying here, if you want to be free, you've got to be woke, I love this, to your possibilities in spite of your past and predicament. That was good right there. Jesus says, woman, you're free. All of a sudden, she's woke to possibilities in spite of her past pain and predicament. Woke because Jesus gave the word. Woke. I ain't coming through. Harriet Tubman, that's my girl. She's my favorite shero of all time. Harriet Tubman was cold. Harriet, watch this. This messed me up. Harriet Tubman got between a runaway and the overseer while she was enslaved. The overseer hurled an iron object, and the iron object was going to hit a runaway. Instead, Harriet got in the way, hit her in the head, and she passed out. The rest of her life, she was subjected to unexpected, inexplicable blackouts that never got taken care of medically because there was no Affordable Care Act where you could have pre-existing conditions dealt with. And so Harriet would black out, y'all, and that's what would happen. But here's what is mind-blowing, and that is that it left a scar on her forehead, and the scar was in the form of a bird. It was a bird with wings that were spread. You missing your shout. She's still enslaved, but every time she looked in the mirror, she saw a free bird on her forehead. And Harriet testified that free bird let her know that slavery was not her final destination. That free bird let her know she wasn't going to be enslaved always. Y'all still missing your shout. And Harriet put it down like this. She says that freedom, true freedom, begins the moment you see beyond where you are and believe in something better. And that's a word for somebody today, because that's simply what the Bible says about God. God can call those things those things that are not as though they already are. And once you know God for yourself, you become woke to possibilities beyond your present predicament. I'm still not coming through. The text says, he said, woman, you are free from your infirmity. You didn't shout. Check this. I was flying from Dallas to Miami to the Bahamas back in January. I had to speak down there, and here's what blew my mind, Todd. I get to Miami, and there's a ferocious thunderstorm. It's a treacherous thunderstorm that delays our flight, but they had us get on the flight not knowing the thunderstorm was coming, and then the lightning began to flash. They shut the airport down. I'm seated next to a little girl who is really disenchanted because of the weather getting in the way of her vacation plan. She's a little girl about 8 or 9 years old, and here's what blew my mind, and that is finally the lightning stopped flashing, and here is what happened. The pilot came over the PA system. Here's the quote. The pilot said, "This is your captain speaking. The good news is the lightning has stopped, even though the rain is still falling. And so I've just received clearance from the control tower that we can take off from Nassau, Bahamas." Watch this. The rain is still coming down, and yet he says, "This is your captain speaking." And the control tower has just informed me that we can take off for Nassau, Bahamas. And do you know that when he made that announcement, the little girl next to me went from disenchanted to delighted and excited. All of a sudden she shouted out, "Yes!" And when she said yes, I looked at her. I said, "Are you all right? We haven't gone anywhere yet. We were not in Nassau yet." And yet she's shouting over an announcement from the captain. Y'all missed it. We are still in the midst of a storm, and yet because the captain made an announcement, she's getting her shout on in advance of arriving in Nassau. Y'all missing your shout, so let me go ahead and give it to you. This is your captain speaking. Weeping may endure for a night, but joy is coming in the morning. This is your captain speaking. All things work together for good to those that love God and are called. This is your captain speaking. No weapon formed against you shall prosper. This is your captain speaking. But wait, it gets even better, because the text lets us know when haters throw shade at you, Jesus comes for them. Yeah. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord. You ain't got to pay anybody back. And y'all, this is hard for me right here because there's some folk in my life, I hope they get 5 minutes in hell. Now, don't judge me, okay? But I got some knives I pulled out of my back from people I've helped. And I hope they get 5 minutes in hell. But you know what God says? I ain't got to give them 5 minutes in hell. I can make their lives a living hell by blessing you in front of them. And there's nothing they can do about it. When they come for you, Jesus comes for them. Y'all think I made this thing up? It's right there in the text. Check out what the synagogue ruler does. The synagogue ruler is too insecure to come at Jesus directly. Look what he does. He engages in passive aggression, and he says to the crowd, not to Jesus, y'all got 6 days to get cured, so why don't you get cured on those days instead? And when he did that, Jesus said, I know you're talking about me, so since you're talking about me and homegirl, I've got to come for you. You came for me and I didn't even send for you. So since you came for me without me sending for you, let me tell you what the real deal is. Don't you love that about Jesus? Jesus says when haters come for you, Jesus will use their hateration for your elevation. Jesus will use their coming for you in order to let them know that Jesus is still God. I'm about to mess y'all up. How does it happen? Read the Bible. I love this. I love this. The text says he prepares a table before us in the presence of our haters. I got a Freddie Haynes remix that. God is so good. God will throw a blessing party in your honor, but the party can't jump off until your haters RSVP. Party over here. I got another one. Joseph, you know his brothers hated on him. His brothers sent him into slavery. And the book says God elevated him to the point where his brothers who sent him now had to come to him in order to get food. And y'all know what they did. They got scared and they said to Joseph, I know you're going to get. He said, no. You didn't send me, the Lord. You didn't sell me here. The Lord sent me here. And then he says, I love it. What is it? Genesis 50. He says, you meant it for evil. But God, I'm talking too fast because I gave y'all shout bomb after shout bomb. You meant it for evil. But stop right there. Stop right there. But is a conjunction. I didn't know what a conjunction was because I ain't smart like Pastor Garnett, so I had to watch the cartoons back in the day, and they had the Schoolhouse Rock, and they had a song on called Conjunction Junction. Y'all saw that thing, didn't you? The function of a conjunction is to connect what's before with what's after. If it is a contrasting or adversative conjunction, like but, yet, however, howbeit, it simply means whatever is on the front side is about to be overruled by what's on the back side. You meant it for evil, but God. That's all you need to shout right there. But God. Do I have some but God saints who will testify it was a but God that made a way out of no way? But God opened doors you didn't even knock on. But God, I want to shout on that, but that ain't the shout. The shout is but God meant. Stop. Meant. Pastor Wheelock's here, so I had to do my homework. So etymologically, I unpacked the word meant. In Hebrew, it's going to mess you up. The word meant, Harry, in Hebrew messes me up. We get our word, watch it, weave from. Yeah. Weave. Keep looking my way. Don't look to see who has one. Look my way, okay? You meant it for evil, but God weaved it for good. Keep looking my way. Don't look to see who has a weave, okay? You meant it for evil. God weaved it. Check this out. You think I'm making it this happened? My sister-in-law sent me this newspaper article several years ago in Detroit. Watch what happened. In Detroit, this happened. A sister is waiting on the bus. And while waiting on the bus, she gets shot in the head. Shot in the head, goes to the ground, but gets right back up. Though she was shot in the head, she didn't die, she got back up because the bullet got stuck in the weed. There's power in the weed. And Joseph tells his brothers, you meant it for evil, but God is unbelievable. And since God is unbelievable, what you meant to take me out, God used to turn me out. I got to quit. I've held y'all too long. So I love it. Jesus says, you hypocrites. You hypocrites, I know what y'all do. Y'all will untie your ox and donkey on the Sabbath because that is something you can use for your own advantage. But here is a woman who has been tied up in her infirmity all of these years, and you mean to tell me you value your oxes and your donkeys more than you do this woman right here? Now you know what the King James says. You value your ox and your ass more than you do this woman right here. So how you gonna value your ox and your ass and not care about this woman right here? That is bass backward. And since that's bass backward, I'm gonna let you know I've got to do something and shut the ass up, because it's more important in God's name for the woman to be delivered than an ass to be set free. Well, y'all are so mad at me for saying ass in church. I'm talking donkey. Donkey. Don't get mad at me. So watch it. And Jesus calls them hypocrites. Two-faced. In church, two-faced. Because they're hypocrites. You know the word hypocrite? It spoke of actors who wore masks. Freddie Haynes, I'm doing the best I can. And I'm sure Jesus is saying to a whole lot of folk who pray for 46-1 while his policies prey on people, hypocrites. I'm sure he's calling those hypocrites who are more concerned with the economy of the gun than the effect of the bullet. And as a consequence, we do not have a sensible, common sense gun legislation and regulations in this country. Hypocrites, because you got folk who call themselves pro-life and yet at the same time they down with the death penalty. Hypocrites who in a real sense will not ensure good quality education for children of color and yet have the nerve to call them lazy. Hypocrites. I love it because Jesus says, you coming for me and her, I'm coming for you. Right. And that's my shout to somebody today. You go on to work tomorrow. Let the haters hate. And then you elevate and watch Jesus come for the folk who've been trying to, okay, I'm not coming through. Howard Thurman testifies. He lived in Florida on a county line. And Howard Thurman says, this is going to shout you right here, that in the back of his home was this woman with a neck issue. It was red. Couldn't stand black people. And so as a consequence, this redneck who hated black people every single day did something dirty, Lynn, something real dirty. This hate-filled woman would take the manure from her cows and horses and then throw the manure with her shovel over the fence into the yard of the Thurmans. It was jacked up. But y'all know what happened. God don't like ugly, ain't too keen on pretty. That's what Mama said. And as a consequence, this woman had a stroke. The stroke had her laid up in a hospital. Her first and only visitor was Mrs. Thurman. Mrs. Thurman shows up when she came to, but she cannot move because of the stroke. And Mrs. Thurman walks in, knocks on the door. The woman wakes up and says, oh my God, as mean as I've been to you, here you are coming to see about me. And oh my God, those flowers in your hand. I've never seen such beautiful flowers in all of my life. You've got to tell me what florist you got those flowers from? Mrs. Thurman said, florist. I didn't get them from a florist. I got them from my backyard. Your backyard, yeah, all of that manure you've been throwing in my backyard, I used it to fertilize my flower bed, and now I got the prettiest flowers in the country, because what you meant for evil, God used to fertilize. Come here, because if you know God for yourself, you're going to have some shady people throwing manure in your life. You ain't got to throw it back. Just use it to fertilize what God is doing in your life. I got to quit. I've held y'all too long. In the final analysis, watch the text. Jesus says to this woman, he then says to her, this is a daughter of Abraham. In a real sense, he affirms her identity, and that transforms her trajectory so she can live out her destiny. Preach, Freddie. I just did. When you know who you are, you know where you're going. When you know who you are because of where you've come from, when you know you're a child of Abraham, Abraham, the father of the faith, Abraham, who God touched with his wife, and as a consequence, people who did not have access to Viagra, and when Sarah was well past menopause, she put men on pause, but the book says they became the parents of a nation, because God can do the impossible. And if God can bless Sarah and Abraham to be the parents of a nation, God can raise this woman up. I've got some children of Abraham in the house who can testify with all the hell I've been through. I serve a God who's the God of Abraham, the God of the impossible, the God who can make a way out of no way. Okay. I guess I'll quit with this. It all happened because Jesus is in the house. Now I got to tell you, I got to get this out the way. Here's the thing trips me out. A lot of times I come out here, wherever I travel, people trip, and it trips me out that they trip, because it don't trip me out. And that is when I get up to preach, I ain't got no notes up here. I'm like Harry Ford, ain't no notes up here. And so folk look at me and they say, you doing all of that without a note. And I don't trip, because me and Harry know it's called gift. Gift. It's a gift if you handle a script. It's a gift if you don't handle a script. Gifts come from God. You can't brag about a gift. Plus, my very first time public speaking was a disaster. It was horrible. I'm 7, 8 years old at Jerusalem Baptist Church, Palo Alto, California, my dad's first church. And we have a church play, and I played David, the shepherd boy. And pastor, when I played David, the shepherd boy, all I do is recite the 23rd Psalm. Right. I went out there to recite the 23rd Psalm, and I forgot the first word, the. And because I forgot the first word, I stood there petrified, frozen, scared. And as a consequence, my sisters and brothers, I couldn't say it. And so as a consequence, I ran off the stage toward my dad, who was on the side of the stage. And when I ran off the stage, I tripped and fell. But when I fell, he caught me. So I tripped and fell, but I fell into daddy's arms. And so I tripped and fell into his arms. When I tripped and fell into his arms, here's what went down. He picked me up and then said, son, in the next scene, I know you can recite this. You going out there again? I said, no, daddy, I ain't going out there. Plus, I'm hurting. He said, son, don't worry. You going out there? I know you can recite this. I said, daddy, I just blew it. No, son, you going out there. You're Frederick Douglass Haynes III. You're my son, and you're about to go out there. I said, but daddy, I can't. Yes, you can. And you going to do it this time, because I'm going to stand behind the cardboard tree prop. And when I'm standing behind the cardboard tree prop, I'm going to recite the psalm to you, and all you got to do is say what I say the way I said it, and you're going to be all right. I wish y'all had seen me. I went out there to the next scene because daddy is pastor. He put me in the next scene, and there I am in the next scene, and I stand up there, and my daddy is behind the cardboard tree prop. Nobody in the audience can see him, but I know he's there. They can't see my daddy, but I know my daddy is on stage with me. And so my daddy said, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. I had confidence now. I said, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. And when he said he makes me lie down in green pastures, y'all, I lied down. I said, he makes me lie fall down in green pastures. And y'all, when I did it that time, the crowd went bananas. But what they did not know is that I wasn't on stage by myself. I was standing on the stage, but what they could not see is Daddy was on stage with me. And y'all, when I stand up and preach, what y'all don't know, I ain't up here by myself. My daddy, my heavenly daddy, is standing here with me. So here it is. When y'all go to work tomorrow, you ain't going by yourself. Your daddy is on that stage with you. And if daddy is with you, you can testify. I've seen the lightning flash. I've heard the thunder roll. I've felt sin breakers dash, trying to conquer my soul. But I heard the voice of Jesus telling me still to fight on. He promised, hey, never to leave me. Never to leave me. No, never alone. No, never alone. Let your haters throw shade. Jesus will let you shine.